So hi everybody and welcome back to our C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 251, and in this video I want to make some code examples about this code here, which we talked in our last video, especially about this line here. Alright, let's get started. So what I did is, first of all, I just copied all this code here to my IDE, and here I added one more struct. So you can see I added this struct C, which is not virtual, because I want to show you that this virtual inheritance is initialized before this one, because that we learned in our video last time. And here on top it says also it is initialized before non-virtual base sub-object, and I want to show you what this really means and how I want to show you this is you can see I inherit this set here as well, but I inherit this set at the first place, which means normally it would call set first and then y and then x, and this will not happen because we have here virtual. And then I will show you this with the compiler. So I will make here when at AA compiler start point, and then I will start here and show this. But before that, there is one more thing what I want to show you. The first thing is I modified this code here a little bit. I just copied it here to the left side. You can see here is our B, here is the set which I added new, this is the new one, and here is this other code here. But I modified a little bit here the constructor for showcases for later, but important is this line here again, and I modified it. So first of all, you already see I added here just a set inheritance, and interesting is I added here a x7 again for showcase, that's later. But here when we watch this initializer list, I don't have a B call like they did. So what happens then if we have not a direct call here? And we have not talked about this in my last video, that's why I'm talking now. And what happens is when I remove this here on top and start here, for example, without this compiler start point, we get an error. And what does the error say? It says here no default constructors for class B. So you can see that's very important as well. These virtual bases, they will be called all time, even if you have not in your initializer list here a call. So that's very important. And interesting is also how they called, because I have here a direct call for B, because B has only a non-default constructor, so it requires B with a number like they did here, but I'm not calling it with any B directly, so the compiler just goes to B and tries to initialize it with the default constructor, and therefore I have to add it. And the thing what you have to keep in mind, even if you add here nothing, the virtual constructor will be still initialized by the compiler first. So you can see they have here a B, even if you have no B, keep this in mind. The compiler is still going here to be and initialize it for them. So that's one thing what I wanted to show you. Then the next thing what I want to show you is the order, how they are called. So the order is defined here a little bit. We learned this here a little bit with this order here, I think. And you see normally set comes first, then y, then x, and then we have here this initializer list order. We will watch this too, but normally set comes first. And let's see what happens in real. So here here's my object. I make here this compiler start point, so that when I start now here, the compiler stops here. And we know I can now use here on top this go step into or step over 2 arrows to check what the compiler initialized first and so on. So let's do this. So here I'm trying to create this A a object, which is just called a in this case. I just copied this from this line here. Let's go into it. It jumps here to our struct of clause. And important is here, what does the compiler see here? The compiler says, okay, inheritance set y x, so a is not complete. This is the first thing what this compiler realized. I can't construct this a, it's not complete. I have make this complete, so I have go to the parents. And now the important question is how he goes to the parents, and the compiler realized, wait a minute, x and y is virtual. And the compiler says, okay, now I get it, because x and y have a virtual base. My job is now to initialize this virtual basis for x and y. So let's see if this is true. So when I go again here and step into, the compiler should jump here, because they are virtual bases, and that we learned in our last video. They are initialized before any non-virtual base object. And here again, this any non-virtual base object, here in this case we have it not an example, but in my case I produced this example. I have here a non-virtual base object. Where is it? This set. Normally set comes before, right? And set here is not virtual. You can see it's just public B. So it is non-virtual base object. So the compiler says, I know you are first, but y and x are virtual base sub object, and my job is to create them first. So the compiler says, I'm creating first x and y and come later here. So let's see if this is true. So I press here, and you can see indeed the constructor from AA again finds here no B, but it jumps here in front on top, because virtual basis has to be created first. And you can see it's here on my default constructor, and then it's creating now first this struct B, and we learned it checks again if struct B is complete. Yes, it's complete because there is no inheritance. So we can see it jumps here to end, creates all things what we have to initialize here, then goes here, and it goes back. So the next question is now what happens? So we have initialized now the virtual base objects. So what is the next step? What do you think? Think a little bit. I click and see what happens. So it jumps to set now. Now it is indeed creating this set which we ignored before. So okay, now it's creating set. When I go into what happens, think about this one here. It will call B, because this one is again a constructor call from B. And careful, this we learned already, virtual base and non-virtual base have different bases, right? So you can see that's why it's creating B here again. But this B is now for set. And then we go back, and this one is also complete. All right, so we have did this. So here is the next question. What happens here? In my last video, I told you this struct AA, yes, when I create an object, because we have here this B free call, this virtual basis here, the constructor here, this B1 and B2 is ignored, right? I said because the job is now from A to create, to call the base of virtual B. That's why they ignored this one. But what happens now if I go into? So, and I told you have to be careful. They are ignored here, but that means not. This one is not called, the constructor. So it is still called, and let's see if this is true. I click here, so I'm here again. I click here, and you can see indeed it is called. The question is now, wait a minute, why is y called first and not x? Because when we watch here the order set x, y, and the answer is again, you can see y is here or here. One of them, I have not checked which order, but the order matters, right? I think it's here. This one matters here. Now, y is here, and because y here is here. It will create this one, and this order you have to keep in mind. It's very important later as well. I will show you in a moment why. But first realize, yes, X, also the constructors are still called even AA called here the bases, and they are ignored. They are still called. So they are called also. So we see Y is called, B is ignored, and now the very important step is actually this one, what I said in my last video as well, which is the special case. You have to be careful. This body here is not ignored. Only the initializer list is ignored when, for example, B initializes here the base. Then this one, this initializer is ignored. But later when it calls, for example, X and Y, like in my case, Y is called. This was ignored. This is ignored because this one will be not called, but this one will be called. So what does this mean? This one will be called. Let's go here one more step. You can see now it goes back. It finished here. I go here in this case because I have in my body a little bit an initializer here. So again, let's make this step again. All right. It says we are here in, we call X, we know B1 will ignored, the body here will not be ignored, and in this case I have even a second constructor, and you can see this one line style is not very nice. I just made it here, but in general I should not make this. Better this style here for readability. So, but okay, I hope it makes not so a big difference. Now you can see these are just two constructors. The first constructor is here, the second constructor is here, and this non-constructor is called in this non-default constructor here is indeed called. We can see here x7, but this part is ignored, so it is not calling the base 9, but the body here, it is called. And interesting is, I talked about you that too, the body can set here the base, for example, n value 2, and I'm doing this. But of course here with the node, the access specifier allows it. For example, if this would be private, and then I would not call it from here as well. So that's very important. This one, the constructor is called. This one is ignored when we create this AA object here, but the body here is still called and can change it. So this one is not changing it, but this still can change it. All right, I think if you understand this step, that's it. And you should try to see this then with the compiler here. You can check this, all these values, but I skipped this part. You can make this to see if this is really true, what happens, if this is really ignored here or not. Well, we can make it fast. Well, let me start this over. And let's see if this is really true and it is if the expected values comes out. Let's make this fast. So I just start again. I create an AA object. I go into this. The non-virtual, virtual base sub objects will be initialized before, which means in this case n is 5. So that's very important. N is 5. Sorry. And then we go back, and then we have initialized now the set one, and set, interesting, set B1 to call this B1, and n is 1 for what? For the second base object, for set. That's very important. Don't mix them together. That's done. Here I go top, I go down, and this is back. So we can watch here a little bit what happens. I expand this. So set is set to B1. That was expected. Like I said, n is set to 1, but x and y, they have separate b's. But this, it shows here it is separate, but they have not separate b's. This b and this b is just one b, and that's why n is here 5 and n is 5. And yeah, let's see if this is then, let's go here a little bit more and see the next steps. I go in, again, y is here, and important is here, y is cold, and B2 is ignored, which means if it's not ignored, B2 would call this one here and set n to 2. But let's see if this is happening. So we go back, it happens. Let's check y if this was happening, and we can see n is still 5 here. This is this line. B2 here was ignored indeed. But now let's go again in to see what happens here with x. It goes in again. I say b is ignored, but in this case, yeah, b is ignored. This is in our initializer list. Oh no, sorry, b9 here in this case, because I call x7 here. So b9 is ignored, but we have to be careful. I said the body is not ignored. Let's see if this is true. So right now we know n should be here still 5, but after this one should be 47 if this is not ignored, right? Let's see. We go in, we open this one up, we go to x, and we see indeed 47 because this one was not ignored. Only this one was ignored. That was what I want to show you. I hope that's clear a little bit, and you should experiment this a little bit. So on. One more thing what I want to show you, and this one we have not talked as well, is this here. What is that? What is that here? Looks a little bit strange, right? And the point here is, first of all, this is our object A, and here we try to specialize what we mean. Because I said X, for example, and Y, they are virtual. Virtual means they share one base. So here is only created one base, right? But Z here has its own base. And then you can call this in a special way. And the special way is, yeah, like this, what I have here. But the problem here is why I'm showing you, what I want to show you is how to call this. So, for example, we start with A again. Okay. Then I set a dot. But here's something strange, right? Where is this Z or where is this X? It is not shown. And careful about this. This one we have to learn right now, but perhaps there are other better solutions where it is shown, but right now it is not shown, which means you have to know this, that you can call this in this special way. So, and this one means just here, for example, this again, this one means just I want the set base. For example, non-virtual base here for this one, and I want the set base here, which was created with n. So here it would come out what? So what you think would come out here? Let me go back here. The answer should be set. We have already seen this with b1 is here, n is 1. So 1 should be for set. For this call, and AX, what should be AX here? And important is here what? So initialized, it start with 5, we know this, right? It start with 5 initialized. This B1, B2 ignored, but this one was not ignored. That means this one should be 47. So let's compile. Perhaps I talked crap. And let's see, and indeed 1 and 47 here, so I don't talk crap. I hope you followed so far, and you should try Try it with your own examples. Again, use a good C++ book where all this concept is a little bit better explained in detail. It's hard. I personally think this little explanation here was hard because like I showed you here, it's not all explained in this little traps you can make here, because it's not shown. All informations are not here. And but if you understand it, very good. And one more thing, what I want to say, here on the bottom we have this special rules, and we will skip this because when I click on this special rules and show you that here, we have to talk about name lookup. It's unqualified name lookup, and there is a qualified name lookup, and this is a topic for itself. Actually, it's an interesting topic, but it's, again, we need for this a separate video. And then the last thing what I want to talk here is, I think that's all about this part here. Yes. One more thing. Okay, sorry. This is just a side note. And the side note is here. This is actually a real example which exists. So if you want, because one time I told you in my one video, you should not, most C++ programmer prefer composition and inheritance not so. If they can avoid it, they avoid it. If not, then not, because composition might be a little bit more easier. But here, this paragraph here shows a real example where inheritance is used, and this real example is actually that what we also use. It is std IO stream. Why we use that, where we use that, let me show you where we use that. Here on top I have my include IO stream. This one here is using inheritance, and actually this one here is using exactly this inheritance, what you see here, for example, right? They are describing it exactly. So the virtual, and then there is one non-virtual. So they are creating one base and then so on. So you can read this and see there is a real world, a real example which is used. And we will try to understand also libraries in more advanced topics when we go there. And they use inheritance. So it is very important that you try to understand inheritance. But one more thing, if you click now here, for example, to go into this kind of stuff, it looks a little bit difficult because we have not talked about templates, and they have something like this as well to analyze that. But the concept is later same. You can see they start here, for example, with class basic IO stream. This colon here is, again, this one here is just a normal class. This colon is an indicator for an inheritance. And here the first inheritance is this. The second inheritance is that. And you can see, yes, there are other things what we have not talked about, this angel brackets here as well. But we will talk about these topics a little bit in the future in our basic tutorials. This is all thing basic. But don't worry if you don't understand this right now. But I wanted to only show you, yes, the inheritance is still very important, and it is used, and you should use it too if it makes your work simple, because there is complicated inheritance when you have very long hierarchy. Perhaps then it's not so the best, but when it's only some lines, why you should not use inheritance. Sometimes it's also good. Yeah, you have to choose what you think it's good for you in the end and for your project. And with that said, I won't stop here, and we will continue still with inheritance, probably with this word virtual, because we have not talked about the other functionality of virtual. One was inheritance and one was a virtual function. Perhaps we talk about this, we will see. So with that said, if you have any questions like all time, write in the comment section. See you in the next video. Bye, good luck, and like all time, have fun and never give up.